right, folks, welcome to the Premier Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Tito Thidoff. You can find me on Twitter at FitHappens. I'll answer all your lineup questions you have. Follow me there. I'll follow you back, and we'll give you any tips you need for your fantasy football lineup this week and going forward. And we got a big game on Thursday night tonight. Green Bay takes on Arizona. It's a 7-0 Cardinals team against a 6-1 Packers team. And the Packers are beset with injuries. You've got Devontae Adams, arguably a top 3 receiver in the NFL, maybe even better than that. But he is out because of COVID issues there. And then also, everyone thought, well, it means Allen Lazard's going to be the guy to come in and maybe get the touches, the looks that Adams get. Now, Lazard's out too, also because of COVID precautions. So the Green Bay offense is ravaged with injuries to the wide receiver mark. Probably helps Robert Tonyan, helps Randall Cobb, but really I don't trust any Green Bay receiver this week that much to where I mean, there's only 2 bye weeks this week with Baltimore and Vegas. So, I mean, if you're hurt with the bye weeks and injuries, then I could see if you want to make a play for one of those guys. But by and large, it's going to be the Aaron Jones show, I think, for Green Bay. I think Aaron Jones gets a lot of touches. I think A.J. Dillon gets enough touches also as well to warrant a potential flex start there. Aaron Rodgers will have a good game again. I just think it'll be scattered so much, and I don't know which receiver I would trust the most. A tight end, if you're losing Mark Andrews and Darren Waller because of the bye weeks, I could see maybe throwing Tonyan in there, but he's been a disappointment this year. But that's where I stay on the Packers. Over the Cardinals side of the ball, just got news that J.J. Watt may miss or likely will miss the rest of the season, which hurts their defense. But going into this game, though, I mean, Arizona, you're going to start Kyler Murray. You're going to start DeAndre Hopkins. Their receivers, again, the number 2 receiver, it's probably A.J. Green. You still have Christian Kirk in there as well. Zack Ertz, he is a tight end start. I like him quite a bit this week again. I know he only had a few catches last week, but one was for a touchdown. So Ertz is still a good play at tight end. At the running backs, James Conner is going to be the better of the two, but I think he and Evans are both good starts this week. I think they'll both get enough carries to warrant a start either as a running back 2 or as a flex. Let's move to the Sunday games. Carolina is at Atlanta. Carolina's offense was putrid last week. Sam Darnold looked, unfortunately, a lot like Sam Darnold looked for the Jets. So he's been on a big downturn, and it's really been tied into the Christian McCaffrey injury. When McCaffrey's out there, Darnold's a lot better quarterback, but so are a lot of other quarterbacks as well. On the Carolina side of the ball, you're still going to start Chuba Hubbard, and I still like DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson, not so much unless you're really desperate, but those are the only guys I really love on the Carolina side of the ball. For Atlanta, Matt Ryan's going to continue to post decent numbers, I think. I know Carolina's defense is really stout, but I think that Ryan, Ridley, Pitts, all potential start. I mean, Ryan's a potential start. Ridley and Pitts are definite starts. I'm still riding Cordero Patterson. He has been a wild card so far, but I still think he gets enough touches as a running back and enough looks as a receiver to warrant a start there as a wide receiver 3 or as a flex. I'm curious to see if Mike Davis gets more involved with the offense this week. He was a hot name in the offseason when drafts came around. Everyone liked him quite a bit as a resurgent kind of player after filling in for McCaffrey last year in Carolina, ironically. But Davis has been too inconsistent this year. I like Atlanta's defense this week. I know Atlanta's defense has been underperforming for what seems like decades now, but I think they've got a decent matchup against the Panthers. Miami at Buffalo, another team that's got a good matchup on defense is Buffalo, but we'll start with the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, you can still start him. Look, when I say start, I mean, if you're in a 12-team league, I think he's a potential start guy with your bye weeks and everything, but he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback this week. His back's against the wall. There's been talk about Deshaun Watson getting traded there again. We'll see if that comes to fruition. As far as the receivers go, Devontae Parker's back. That devalues him and Jalen Waddle both. Waddle was a very good player when Parker was out, but I don't think either one are going to be outstanding this week against this Buffalo defense. Myles Gaskin, very hit and miss. Maybe a flex play this week, but I'm not looking forward to him having. I'm not looking at him having a very big game this week for Miami against this Buffalo defense. We could be looking at another huge blowout win for the Bills, and which means you're going to start Josh Allen. I think both running backs in Buffalo deserve a strong look with Devin Singletary Also now probably getting some carries near the red zone along with Zach Moss. Zach Moss is the better of the two. Devin Singletary, though, is still decent. And I think all three Buffalo receivers are startable in Diggs, Beasley, and also Emmanuel Sanders. And the Buffalo defense could be one of the top defenses this week because I think they have their way with Miami. The 49ers take on the Bears. Last time we saw the 49ers, they didn't look great. And, Garoppolo's probably still your quarterback there. I like Elijah Mitchell, but you're going to start Deebo Samuel. But, look, I'm done with Brandon Ayuk for the time being. George Kittle's on IR, won't be back this week. So those are the two guys I like for San Francisco to start. We look at the Bears side of the ball. Really, there's nobody. I mean, they can't protect Justin Fields, so he can't get the ball off to Mooney and Robinson. And, the running game I don't trust either. So unless you're desperate for a running back, then maybe take Herbert there. But by and large, I don't think Chicago's got anybody who you want to rely on this year. Let's move on to the Steelers and Browns. Big AFC North matchup. The Steelers, you're going to start Najee Harris. You're not starting Big Ben. You're going to start Deontay Johnson. Chase Claypool has been disappointing because of his inconsistency. So I'm not a huge Chase Claypool guy this week unless you're in dire straits. And as far as tight end goes, Freiermuth looked good last week. He's somebody who I picked up in a couple of leagues and just stashed him to see if he takes on more of the tight end one role. Right now, I think it's a 1A and 1B. Ebron, though, is nearing the end of his time with the Steelers. I think the Steelers will rely more on Freiermuth, who may have some value as a red zone target in the second half of the season. For the Browns, Baker Mayfield's trying like hell to come back. Early in the season, I was pounding the desk and saying that Mayfield is not a fantasy starter and not going to have a good fantasy year. Even without the injury, I think I nailed that one. But I don't think it matters who's a quarterback. You're not starting either one, either Case Keenum or Baker Mayfield. Nick Chubb comes back. Kareem Hunt's still out. I think Chubb's a start. And, Dearness Johnson's going to get the carries and the looks that Kareem Hunt usually would get, I think. So I think Dearness Johnson's a flex play this week. I like him there. As far as the Browns receivers, Jarvis Landry in a PPR has got some value, but if it's not PPR, he really doesn't have that kind of value, so I wouldn't play him if it's a non-PPR league, and I don't like the Cleveland tight ends. Philadelphia is at Detroit. The Eagles, look, Jalen Hurts so good. I loved him in the preseason. I'm sorry, I didn't love the preseason. I loved him during the season. I wasn't that high in the preseason. He showed me some things during the season which made me think he was going to be a consistent play, but Jalen Hurts has struggled now to the point where we're not even sure if he's a quarterback of the future for Philadelphia. This is a big game for him taking on Detroit. So I think he is still startable this week. I don't think he'll have a great week, but I think he's still startable there. Philadelphia running situation, Miles Sanders out. So you look at Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. Gainwell is probably the one to own of the two. He and Scott, though, I think will split the touches in that offense. And, they're I don't think either one of them are must-plays anyway. As far as receivers go, look, you're going to start Dallas Goddard. I think Dallas Goddard's a top 5 or 6 tight end the rest of the year, and I think Devonta Smith is still okay to start. But beyond that, I don't want any part of Philadelphia. They take on the Lions. The Lions last week against the Rams came out and really gave the Rams a scare early on. They had a fake punt. They had an onside kick. They had an early lead. Gave some confidence. They played the game closer than anyone expected them to. But this week, you're not starting Jared Goff. You're starting DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. I think that's it. Hawkinson is being started more just because of you drafted him high. So I doubt you have a better tight end option. So you kind of have to play Hawkinson. But he's been wildly inconsistent as well. So, I don't need part of any Detroit receivers right now. We'll see what happens in that game on Sunday. Tennessee is at Indianapolis. The Titans, who had the big win against Buffalo recently, and Derrick Henry's still the guy you're going to start. A.J. Brown's finally starting to look better. Julio Jones, I'm on the fence about him. I need to see more out of him. I need to see him stay healthy for an extended period of time. But I don't think Jones is necessarily a must-start this week. A.J. Brown is. Ryan Tannehill is not, going against that Indianapolis defense. And, Carson Wentz is still not a startable guy. The Colts offense is going to revolve around Jonathan Taylor again. They need him to have a big game in order to beat Tennessee, to have a chance to beat Tennessee. It's a huge AFC South matchup. So I think that, Taylor's the only necessarily must start. I like Pittman, but I need to see more consistency out of him and Wentz before I'm going to make him an every week start. The Bengals, surprising Bengals take on the Jets. On the Bengals offense, Joe Burrow is shown he can put up big numbers. I still like Burrow. Jamar Chase is going to have a big game, I think, also against the Jets. And then, you've got T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. T. Higgins is a must start. Tyler Boyd has been very disappointing this season. And, he's another guy who you probably have to start because you drafted him as high as you did. I don't know if you have a better option than him, but Tyler Boyd, I need to see a big game. This could be a good game for him because I think they will try to force the ball to him to get him more involved in the offense. But so I'm a little bit optimistic about Tyler Boyd this week. In the running game, you've got Joe Mixon, a must start, and Samaje Perine. I think he'll get enough touches because I think the Bengals will blow the Jets out, and they won't. Mixon might not play much into the fourth quarter. So Perine's going to get some carries. He's been decent lately. So if you're desperate, you could look at him. On the Jets side of the ball, there is no one worth starting. As a matter of fact, the Bengals defense is another thing I would start this week. I love the Bengals defense on the road against this Jets team. Mike White. Who? Mike White? Mike White is the starting quarterback for the Jets this week, and they just reacquired Joe Flacco, and he's not ready to start for them. So Mike White, who's out of Western Kentucky after, I think, his third year in the NFL, but he's going to struggle, which means the receivers will struggle, which means the running backs will struggle. One more game in the early window. LA Rams at Houston, got another potential blowout game. You're going to start your normal Rams. You're going to start Stafford. You're going to start Henderson, Cooper Kupp. You're going to start Robert Woods. Even Van Jefferson is worth a look in some leagues, depending on the bye weeks, because I think Van Jefferson gets some looks as well. I think they're going to roll all over Houston. The only person on Houston, as usual, worth starting, the only person on Houston worth starting is going to be Brandon Cooks, who still gets the volume. We'll see who's under center. It looks like it could be Tyrod Taylor this week, but Brandon Cooks is the only one we're starting, and the Rams defense, again, a defense I would look to start on the road at Houston. I think they bounced back big after the scare in Detroit last week. All right, coming up after the break, we'll preview the late window of games, the Sunday night game and the Monday night game. But stick around. This is the premier fantasy podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
All right, let's jump into the late games. You've got New England at Los Angeles against the Chargers in the 4 o'clock Eastern time zone there. The New England offense, Mac Jones had a big game last week. I don't expect a repeat of that this week. I still think Damian Harris is a start. Jacoby Myers is a start because of the volume he's going to receive. But there's no one. Look, I'm not in love with the New England tight ends again this week either, or Mac Jones. So I think Damian Harris is really the only one. Ramondre Stevenson is somebody who has been inactive the last couple weeks, and it's been a decision by the coach. He's been a healthy scratch the last couple of weeks, but we'll see if he gets into action this week for the Patriots. On the Chargers side of the ball, you're still starting Justin Herbert. As far as receivers go, yes, Mike Williams, yes, Keenan Allen, and in the running game, you're starting Austin Eckler. But that's probably it as far as that game goes. Jacksonville takes on Seattle. Seattle has looked so bad in their offense. We'll start with Jacksonville, though. You're going to start James Robinson, yes. Other than that, there's no must start on the Jacksonville side of the ball. For the Seahawks, I want no part of Geno Smith. You still have to start Metcalf, though. And you still have to start Lockett. I don't trust the Seattle running backs, but those are the guys you're starting for the Seahawks, I think. Next game is Washington at Denver. For Washington, I like J.D. McKissic quite a bit. You're still going to start Terry McLaurin, but I like McKissic quite a bit because I think that he will end up catching passes out of the backfield, and also with the Antonio Gibson dealing with a shin injury, I think you could see McKissic play a larger role than usual. Gibson, you're still going to start him unless we get news about him late that he's not playing, or limited in a bigger way, but I think that McKissic is the safer bet of the two in that offense. They're taking on Denver. Denver, we saw how bad they looked against Cleveland last time out. And so you're not starting really anybody in the Denver as far as the quarterbacks go. The running backs, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. I like Javonte Williams more. They're both okay as flex plays or RB2s potentially this week. As the receivers go, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy looks like he's going to be back, so you're still going to start those guys and probably have to start Noah Fant, but I don't have high expectations for the passing game for Denver despite Washington's subpar defense. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. This is a big one. National game for Fox. You're starting Brady. You're starting Fournette. You're starting Godwin. You're starting Evans. Antonio Brown, we got to see if he's going to play or not. If he plays, you're going to start him. Gronk is still going to be out, so I'm not a big O.J. Howard guy or anybody else there as far as the tight ends go for Tampa Bay. But Fournette's the only running back we're starting for Tampa Bay. New Orleans, this could be a decent game for Jameis Winston. I don't think he's in your starting lineup unless you're in a very bad situation with bye weeks and injuries. But, I think Winston could put up some decent numbers against Tampa Bay's defense just because of the volume. He's going to have to throw the ball quite a bit, which probably still means another big game for Kamara. But the New Orleans receivers, until Michael Thomas comes back, I don't think any of them are really worth starting. Dallas takes on Minnesota on Sunday night. The Cowboys, you're doing your regular Cowboy players. You're absolutely starting Prescott. You're going to start Elliott. You're going to start CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper, maybe. Let's just kind of watch him. Amari Cooper's been a spot starter. He hasn't been an every week starter for me. Tony Pollard. I think Pollard will get some carries in this game also, so he's probably still worth a flex look just based on the volume he's going to have. On Minnesota's side, you're not going to start Kirk Cousins unless you are in a desperate situation. I don't think Cousins is a top 12 quarterback this week, or maybe he's top 12. I don't know if he's top 10. Justin Jefferson still a start. Adam Thielen still a start. Dalvin Cook. I'm not going to go with Madison. Madison only has value for me if Cook is injured or limited, and I don't think Cook will be either of those things this week. We will come back later on this week and talk about the Monday night game between New York and Kansas City and recap some of the Sunday stats and talk about that all leading into the Monday night game. Again, this has been the Premier Fantasy Podcast. I'm Jeff Thidoff, Tito they call me, @ThitHappens on Twitter, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Thanks so much for tuning in.